What's up, everyone? Welcome back to C&D Sports. The MLB winter meetings are in full swing right now. The hot stove is burning up right now after the Jacob deGrom signing. But we're here to talk about shortstops because this is probably going to be a busy week for shortstops, busy week for position players too. Judge expected to go off the board, so we'll see where that goes. But the shortstop, the deepest shortstop free agent class that we've seen, that probably I've ever seen, maybe ever, to have four big name shortstops like this spearheading the position players.
Well, it's a good year to be in need for shortstops, and we'll kick it off with Trea Turner. Who do you think are the best suitors for him?
Well, yeah, with Trea Turner, in my opinion, he's the best shortstop in this class. I think there's really tiers to these shortstops, and I think he's not in his own tier because I think he's in a tier with the next guy that we'll mention, but I think it's a 2 and 2 kind of thing. But Trea Turner, I think, is the best shortstop. I think the versatility of the fact that he does know how to play second base, he can play other positions, makes him that much more valuable than some of these other guys. But it's more, these other guys might know how, but he's more familiar with it, doing it with the Dodgers when they had Corey Seager in the lineup. So, and I think coming from the Dodgers are obviously going to need they're going to need a shortstop of some sort if Turner leaves, but I think they're probably in that batch of suitors there for him to come back. I think the Dodgers, again, they have bottomless pockets, it seems. They are a perennial World Series contender. So obviously he can be competitive. He can kind of be the face up the middle for them that they want. So I think the Dodgers obviously there. I think the Philadelphia Phillies coming off of their pennant race, I think they're going to be big for all four of these shortstops. That'll become a trend, as will the Chicago Cubs. I think the Chicago Cubs have a very interesting young core. They're a bigger market team, not too far off from winning the World Series, and I don't think the Cubs will ever. I don't think they'll ever fully embrace a rebuild. I think they're one of those teams like the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Red Sox that I think they're too big. They're too big of a market to really go all out for a rebuild. I don't think their fan base will allow that. So I think the Cubs have a unique opportunity here with the fact that Nico Hoerner, who I think if they don't get one of these four shortstops, I think Nico Hoerner can man that spot at short, but he can also move to second base. So it's really a win-win situation for the Cubs here. So I think they'll be a finalist for Turner. But I ultimately see him going to the Phillies here on an 8-year deal worth $270 million. I think the Phillies lacked that production from the shortstop spot throughout the playoffs. They were platooning Bryson Stott and Edmundo Sosa, albeit those aren't bad defensive options. I think Trea Turner is far better defensively, and he is miles ahead, better and more consistent offensively in a spot that you really do want consistency. You don't really want to platoon a shortstop. It's very rarely done. It's the key piece up the middle in the infield. Kind of a key catalyst almost. You're going to see high averages. You're going to see high on base percentages out of good shortstops. And Trea Turner offers that for the Phillies. And I think the Phillies need to address the fact that Bryce Harper is going to be out until probably after the All-Star break due to injury. So Trea Turner offers that offensive consistency, that high average, that high on base, that Bryce Harper, his former teammate actually, in Washington, that Bryce Harper would add to that lineup. And when Bryce Harper comes back, it just makes that lineup all the more dangerous. I didn't think the Phillies would be in the market for a huge name, knowing that they have to pay the likes of Bryce Harper, of JT Realmuto, of Kyle Schwarber. There's a lot of big contracts, and you don't associate the Phillies with a huge market like a Yankees, Dodgers, Red Sox type market. But Dave Dombrowski is their GM. He's been known to spend big, kind of, it's spend first, think second with Dombrowski. So I think he will definitely spend big on Turner, and I think it would be a good investment. So 8 years, $270 million is
All
what I'm
right.
thinking for Trea Turner.
All right. And then we'll move on over to Carlos Correa. Who are your suitors?
And yeah, Carlos Correa, I think the Phillies and the Cubs for the same reasons will be big there. But I think Correa's market looks a bit different because he was a free agent last year and he chose the Minnesota Twins. A bit of a surprise, kind of a team that has had success in the past. They were a young, not a huge market team, very young core. And he did great with the Twins. I do think the Twins will certainly be an option for him. I just don't think they'll be a top option because I think a guy like Royce Lewis, who they drafted first overall a few years ago, is probably who they're going to want to go with. I think teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees will also be in play for him. The Giants are another name that could be in play. But I think the Phillies, the Cubs, and because his market looks different, I think the Baltimore Orioles will be big on Carlos Correa. And because his market looks different, that's why I have Carlos Correa going to the Baltimore Orioles on an 8-year, $280 million deal. So $10 million more than Trea Turner. And I think they are in a class of their own, these two shortstops in this free agency, like I've mentioned before. So I could see them I think they're going to get very similar deals. And honestly, I think he gets more because I think he signed second. I think Trea Turner is the first one to go, and it becomes a situation where it's like that Machado Harper when they were in the free agency together, where one of them's just trying to outbid the other. With same thing with Francisco Lindor, he wanted just $1 million more than his counterparts. I think it's going to be one of those things, and I think also Baltimore is going to have to show him some more money too, considering they are a team that technically is still supposed to be rebuilding right now. But I think their success last year will drive them to spend to try to find some consistency for what will be a young core consisting of Gunnar Henderson, who would feature right next to him at third base. I think the fact that Gunnar Henderson can play third base, even though he's a top 5 prospect in baseball right now, the fact that he can play third base won't drive them away from signing Carlos Correa. But yeah, when you have Gunnar Henderson, when you have Adley Rutschman, Jackson Holiday could be up there soon. You have all these they have a very good farm system. And when you have young guys that are looking to make the jump, you're going to want that consistency in that lineup, that guy that has that leadership capabilities. And I think Carlos Correa has that. You saw what he did with Jeremy Pena and how Jeremy Pena was a huge part of the Astros World Series success this year. And the mentorship that Carlos Correa gave him when Carlos Correa left for Minnesota, basically told Jeremy Pena, the team is yours. So he told him his spot is his. So to really run with it. And Jeremy Pena did. So I think he's the perfect leadership type guy that a Baltimore Orioles clubhouse would want. And I think the Orioles, with their success last year, the Red Sox, I don't think are getting any better. I think the Rays showed some flaws last year. I think they're going to start to come down a bit. Obviously still in the wild card. Those Rays will still be in the wild card mix. I think the Yankees second half of the year makes them a little more vulnerable. That Baltimore views them as a team that, you know what, they're not far and away better than us. We can catch them. And Toronto's getting good. And I think Baltimore is going to need to spend to compete with Toronto. So I think you do that. They have that perfect mix of we've got money to spend and we also have a very young, talented core on the way up. That I think they need to spend it wisely, and why not spend it on a position that is so key to every team. And there is just a bounty of shortstops available, of great shortstops available.
Yeah, and then we'll move on to Xander Bogaerts. Who are your suitors here?
So Xander Bogaerts, once again, it may get a little dull, but I've had the Cubs and Phillies again. But this is where I see the Dodgers really coming into the mix for shortstops, because I don't think they're going to get Trea Turner back. I think obviously they have a shot, but I don't, as I have predicting him going to the Phillies, I don't think he's going to go back to the Dodgers. And I think the Dodgers will then focus to, okay, who can we spend less on, but get similar production. And that's where guys like Xander Bogaerts and Dansby Swanson, who we'll talk about later, come into the mix. So I think the Dodgers will be in the mix with the Cubs and the Phillies. But I ultimately have him going to the Chicago Cubs on a 6-year deal worth $180 million. And here's the deal. I mentioned before, the Cubs have flexibility that Nico Hoerner can play other spots in the infield. You feel comfortable if he plays it short, because I think Nico Hoerner is a future star in this league. He's already shown star potential, and I think he will continue to grow on that. And I think the Cubs are in that mix of the AL Central is kind of wide open right now. The Brewers are trending towards a rebuild. The Cardinals are good, and the Cardinals will continue to be good. But right now, the Reds are a few years away. The Pirates are a few years away. So I think the Cubs, albeit they were very bad last year, I think they have good pieces to work with. They've got a good system. They've got a good makings of a good farm system right now. So I think Xander Bogaerts is that perfect addition to come in. Xander Bogaerts hits, and the fact that Xander Bogaerts isn't in the top two here is almost kind of insulting to Xander Bogaerts because he's been one of the best hitters in baseball and has quietly gone about his business doing it. Like, we talk about hitters, we talk about the Aaron Judges, the Carlos Correas, the Trea Turners, but Xander Bogaerts quietly goes ahead, he's going to hit or over 320 every year. He's going to get on base a lot, and he's going to hit in a lot of ways. He'll beat you for doubles. He will crank absolute bombs. He does everything very well, and just quietly goes about his business. So I think that's why he's going to demand a little less, because he doesn't necessarily have that huge spotlight on him. So the market will demand less for him, but I think 6 years, 180 that's where I'd put him at around $30 million a year, which comes in, almost $10 million a year less than Correa and Turner. So it's a bit of a budget saver here for teams that are in the mix for Turner and Correa. If they don't get them, like I think the Cubs won't get those two, then Xander Bogaerts becomes, a very suitable backup plan, to the point where he almost shouldn't be a backup plan.
And then we'll round out the shortstops with Dansby Swanson.
Yeah, and Dansby Swanson, he's definitely fourth on this list. I think he's had a great few years. Obviously, that a key part of their 2021 World Series ring. And he had a great year last year. So that's why I think the Braves are going to be in the mix for him. Now, the Atlanta Braves have locked up a lot of key young players, like Michael Harris, like Ozzie Albies, like Ronald Acuna. So I look at that and think, okay, well, is there going to be enough money to offer Dansby Swanson? And the fact that they couldn't come to an extension deal makes me think he wants more than just one of those team-friendly deals that other guys took. Obviously, I think he's in a great situation in Atlanta. I think Atlanta it would certainly hurt them not to bring him back. But I don't think that Atlanta is, I don't necessarily see it happening with Atlanta, but I do think there's the desire to make this happen, which makes them one of his top suitors for me. And then I have the Dodgers, who, again, for those reasons, I don't think the Dodgers will be in the mix if they don't get Turner. For Correa, I think it will more be kind of a Bogart Swanson style deal. And then the Chicago Cubs, again, I think are one of those teams that are going to be looking for a shortstop. They're going to be in the mix for all of them. So that's where I kind of see Dansby Swanson fitting into the mix here. But I have him going to the Dodgers here. I do have the Dodgers landing one of these big four shortstops here. 6 years, $150 million. I think Dansby Swanson fits nicely in that lineup. A reunion with his teammate Freddie Freeman, I think that'll be, when balls are grounded to shortstop. I think that Swanson to Freeman combo that we've kind of gotten used to seeing, I think that'll be a thing again. I think defensively, he's great. He has a lot of range. I think offensively, he really does add a lot to the right side of the plate for them. So Dodgers at 6 years, $150 million is where I have Dansby Swanson going. The Dodgers just have too much money to not miss out on a shortstop class like this.
Swanson to the Dodgers would be every Braves fan nightmare after losing Freeman, and then to go on to lose Swanson, that would just be awful. But it is what it is. That's how free agency goes.
That's how free agency goes. And with these, I do want to bring up one more point. I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if I was wrong on some of these. I know I got DeGrom right, but I don't expect to get, free agency's wild, so I don't expect to be perfect in my predictions here. With shortstop names like this, I think teams like the Diamondbacks, kind of teams that you don't consider that have a shot at contending in a few years. I kind of hinted at it with Baltimore, but I think Baltimore's a little farther along than a team like Arizona because I've heard rumors of Arizona being in on guys like Xander Bogaerts. I wouldn't be shocked if a team like that made a big play, kind of like how there were rumors of Tampa Bay having a meeting with Jacob DeGrom. Like that kind of style. Arizona has been known to, steal some big names. Zach Greinke in the past, he chose to go there. I think that lack of state tax again, we saw that with DeGrom going to the Rangers. I think that plays into it with, no state tax in Arizona. So I think teams like that, where financially it makes sense and it's not out of the question if they get a long enough deal that they could be contending towards the middle of this deal. So stay tuned for that. I still do. I feel confident in my picks. I feel like they're grounded predictions. Um, but yeah, something could. I wouldn't be shocked if a team like that went in for a shortstop and maybe ended up, catching the big fish. So we shall see.
We shall see. And with that, we'll wrap this video. Stay tuned. We have more free agency talks and conversations coming up, and we'll see you soon.
Nailed it.